Akademiks can't ride no wave.
But okay, all right, perfect. So there is like an update on Lil Durk, and we did post it. Shout out to Lawyer for Workers, who has been like keeping like really in tune with the case. Check this out right here.
Lil Durk update. The trial has been pushed to August 2026. If you listen to the noise, all you're going to hear is Durk is cooked. Nobody's there for Durk. Motion denied. But that's just the noise. The fact of the matter is his trial team has won a number of points in this case. The indictments, there's been 3 indictments, and each time the allegations against Durk have thinned out. Some of the evidence that they wanted to use has actually been withdrawn so that the judge didn't have to exclude it. I'm going to take you through it piece by piece. I'll leave the best parts for the end. First, when they charged Durk, the main allegation about him rapping and his lyrics was this lyric about him going, told me they got an Addy, got location, green light, seen your son on the news screaming, no, no. Okay, that lyric, if you play that lyric, then you play the video of Quando next to the murdered victim, no, no, you would have won major points with a jury. That lyric's not in the indictment anymore because Findling showed that those lyrics were written well before the murder. Couple more points. When they bought this case, they said Lil Durk update. The trial has been pushed to August.
Okay. Let's go to the next.
Interestingly, at the same time that the government pivoted from saying Diddy paid the shooters to saying, hey, it was putting people in music videos, they also added a fallback charge. So when they bought the case, the original indictment, there was no stalking charge. In the second superseding indictment against Durk, they added a stalking charge. And the stalking charge is important because it doesn't require any contract. No quid pro quo, no bounty, no payment theory. You can add that charge and simply prove that, hey, he was telling people to go do this. He didn't necessarily pay them to go do a murder, but he was telling them to go follow that guy. He was telling them to go stalk that guy. And a jury can look at it and say, a lot like in the Diddy case, that, hey, not exactly sure here. Very, very, very suspicious individual over here. I'm going to go ahead and hit him with the lesser charge. And so, when the government puts in that fallback charge later in the case, that tells you that they're not 100% sure on their theory, that they acknowledge that, hey, we need to have a fallback here. Keep an eye out for a couple things. One, interestingly, at the same time.
Okay. Shout out to my man, Mo Gagner. He's spitting a lot of knowledge here. And let me just go to his page real quick to see if there's another update. He's actually right. And if you do fuck with Durk, I do implore you to kind of like check.
Same time that the government pivoted from saying Diddy paid the shooters to saying, hey, it was putting people in music videos, they also added a fallback charge. So when they bought the case, the original indictment, there was no stalking charge. In the second superseding indictment against Durk, they added a stalking charge. And the stalking charge is important because it doesn't require any contract. No quid.
To give you a little bit of context, so the stalking charge is going to mirror what we seen with Diddy with the prostitution charge, right? They wanted to get Diddy on sex trafficking, not prostitution, not paying for, it's not even paying for pussy. They claimed Diddy was paying for dick, right? Which is crazy. Diddy got sent to jail for paying for penis. Obviously not, well, supposedly not for himself, but for somebody else. But that was the way that the jury could rationalize this, because everything else he was charged with, they said, nah, it don't fit the bill. What was that? Racketeering. RICO. No. This was an organizational. Nah, this was just a horny guy. Okay, the next thing is, sex trafficking. Nah, that's not that. These chicks was kind of down with this shit. Nah. Then the last thing is, did he technically pay for prostitutes? That's how he got convicted, right?
Pro quo, no bounty, no payment theory. You can add that charge and simply prove that, hey, he was telling people to go do this. He didn't necessarily pay them to go do a murder, but he was telling them to go follow that guy. He was telling them to go stalk that guy. And a jury can look at it and say, a lot like in the Diddy case, that, hey, not exactly sure here. Very, very, very suspicious individual over here. I'm going to go ahead and hit him with the lesser charge. And so, when the government puts in that fallback charge later in the case, that tells you that they're not 100% sure on their theory, that they acknowledge that, hey, we need to have a fallback here. Keep an eye out for a couple things. One, the motion for an anonymous jury is still hanging out there. That means that the jurors go in there and their identities and names and addresses are not revealed. If that motion gets granted, it's going to change the complexion of this case significantly, because if you're a juror and you go in there and the judge tells you, hey, we're going to keep everything confidential and your identity secret because this is a dangerous case, well, you might rule a certain way based on hearing that information. The other thing to keep an eye out for, not all of the lyrics have been ruled on. A lot of the lyrics, especially those lyrics that have to do with bounties, the judge said, hey, we get to closer to trial and I see how the government is going to try to prove a bounty. That's when I'll decide whether these lyrics about bounties are
So let me give you like some realistic shit that's happening right now with the case. Yo, they literally have to prove. So remember, murder for hire is not just that you got someone killed. It's the idea that you actually pretty much had a conspiracy to get someone killed with you promising payment. That's the for hire part. So here's the problem. Well, if y'all can't prove that there was a direct, like, hey, we're giving you $20,000, or maybe there's an attempt to give you $20,000, you know, it's even a problem if it's like, say I say like, man, somebody should have killed Johnny. If y'all killed Johnny, man, I got $1 million for you. Well, did I just commit murder for hire if Johnny gets killed? Or was I just using my First Amendment right, which is freedom of speech? Well, conspiracy takes a little bit more. Conspiracy takes a tacit knowledge of another person, of what the plot is, and it actually takes actions which are called overt acts, right? Which is, I could say, man, somebody should kill so-and-so, and if so-and-so dies or whatever, it doesn't mean I paid for it. Now, if it says, oh, yo, somebody should kill so-and-so, I got 50 bands for him, maybe they don't have me doing a lot, but what they do have is me going to the bank and pulling out $50,000 the same day. It's starting to add up to, oh, this person maybe did do a murder for hire. And that's where it's at. So what's going on with the trial? It's not only proven murder. We all know that Lil Pop got murdered, but it's also, you got to prove murder for hire. Now, why is that a problem? Because if y'all don't have, oh, we were going to give you $50,000 or like a monetary sum, it becomes a little flaky. If, you know, and the government has changed their stance a couple times, meaning that they don't really have dead to rights or like the smoking gun on what's the payment. So what's the payment for Durk? So remember, it's not that Durk is going to get found guilty for murder. He has to get found guilty for murder for hire. So it's not that maybe he wanted or maybe he was involved in Lil Pop getting murdered. It was that he hired the niggas to do the murder. Well, how could that work? You know what they're going to think about? You know what they're going to consider? Well, how did you promise to pay them? And this is what his team is going to focus on. Well, Durk never sent none of these guys money. So the government has shifted their focus to, nah, it's not about money. Durk was offering opportunities via music. Now, here's the biggest problem, because usually when it comes to, like, you know, an artist signing people, you know, they're going to be like, yo, listen, I'm locked in with OTF, like, like, I'm standing, I'm riding on everything. That doesn't mean that you're killing people to be in OTF. It just means that, hey, you like OTF and you're signed to a label. But the government is going to try to make it, in their case, oh, you are trying to do this to advance your career and you may have killed somebody just to be lit. As you could probably tell, it's going to be a hard time trying to prove that everybody who you're claiming killed someone not for money, but for a feature. So that's what you want us to believe? Niggas killed niggas for features?
Relevant. One thing to keep it a buck, and just to not sugarcoat it, the lyrics that Durk has out there about slide for Vaughn I got it back in blood. You just don't know that's how it's supposed to be. The podcast comments about I just don't be hearing those comments anymore about sliding for Vaughn. All that stuff is in. All that stuff is incredibly damaging to Durk. Had those things not been released into the public record, my God, this would be a much easier case to defend. All that being said, Durk...
Cap, here's the thing, and this is where I disagree with Mo Gagnon. Whether those things exist or not, the main thing and the big thing is that is Lil Durk, right? Is he gonna have to, is he gonna have people telling on him? Because he could show up to court and say, everything you're hearing, I was talking, my man told me about a old story back in the hood where somebody got killed. He could always make up a story. This is art. This is art. So that's where I think Durk is gonna get, fucked up, is that I think he could explain everything away until the snitches pop up there. The snitches gonna be like, yo, Durk, you remember when me and you was in a private jet and right before they came to service the caviar, you say, yo, I want you to turn his brains into caviar. And I said, oh, say less. I got you, gang. You remember that, Durk? It's going to be the snitches that take Durk down. It's not going to be lyrics. Snitches, 100%.
Trial, August 2026. This will be a trial for the ages. Interestingly, at the same time that the government pivoted from saying Diddy...
Okay. So, and yes, the government did pivot. They're saying that, remember they used to say Diddy paid the killers, or it was his job to recruit and pay the killers, and they really couldn't link Durk to really paying nobody, even though in another separate case, which is the case with Stephon Mack with Anthony Montgomery and what's the name, Powell. In that particular case, Durk is mentioned by the shooters as, oh, when is he going to pay? But in this case, they haven't mentioned nothing of the sort yet. Now, I was looking at Durk all day real quick, and then if we can't find nothing here, okay. And by the way, they have denied a motion to sever the trials. So, Diddy's motion to sever, denied. Also, Houston's motion to sever, denied. Also, Lindsay, they joined in the motion, denied. And, this is another motion. This is government filed. And, yeah. So, in all of this, it is the motion to the, and you can see it right here. Oh, no, it doesn't show actually here. But the motion to sever the trial has been denied seemingly for all the defendants. And they're going to have the trial on August. Now, it's been moved from April to August. And you could kind of see where it's going. Whenever the dates is going to be fully figured out, I still think it's going to be moved back to November. And November next year, I believe that we'll get or at least December next year, we'll get a complete understanding of what's going to happen with Durk. Okay. All righty then. Cool.